Hi everyone, it's Ali here. In this video, I'm interviewing Canadian singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Roman Clarke. He's an incredibly talented guy and a great songwriter. As soon as I heard his music, I just knew I had to interview him for you. We cover an awful lot in this interview and I'm sure it will help you improve your songwriting. But before we get into that, I just wanted to give you a quick preview of his music. So coming up is a clip from his single, Waiting.
Change us, running from light, but nearing the end of the tunnel, making me realize I'm gonna be waiting, and everybody gonna be waiting on me. Shame on me. Oh, I'm gonna be staying, and everybody gonna be changing. Shame on me, yeah, yeah. Baby, it's okay. Sometimes life just goes that way. Forever and always, I love you like I love those days. Baby, it's okay. Sometimes life just goes that way. It goes that way. I'm gonna be waiting. Everybody gonna be waiting on me.
Right, hi everyone, we're here with Roman Clarke, who I found through a friend on Instagram who's an awesome singer-songwriter and very talented multi-instrumentalist from Canada. So it's good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, dude.
No problem.
It's cool.
Just to start off with, just so people can get to know you, if you could just tell us kind of bit of background, how you got started playing music, and then also how you kind of got into songwriting.
Okay, well, I grew up in a small town in Manitoba in Canada called Brandon. My dad, my parents are both musicians, but my dad grew up touring, just like in country bands and rock bands and stuff. So his influence on me was fairly heavy. He taught me how to play drums and piano and guitar and bass and all the other things. And kind of we always had instruments in the house all the time, in every room, in the living room. And we had like a studio and a music room that was just reserved for jamming and playing music, and my dad and I would play music together all the time, and I would go to like his band's rehearsals, and so all of that kind of growing up was very inspiring to me. And I started writing songs fairly young, I guess, just as like I don't even know really how I started writing songs. All I remember is just kind of doing it all the time. Like ever since probably I was like 10 or 11. It was very much like I was a pretty crazy little kid, and it was very much a way for me to kind of expel some energy. And so that kind of just persisted through the years. Whenever I started, just notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of just lyrics and poems and things of, me just talking about girls I liked and stuff. And then I started like playing in bands, and I started like drums at that point was my main instrument more or less, and I was focusing on that more when I was like 13, 14, and I started playing in a band that is now called the Middle Coast, but it's three guys, Liam and Dylan, that I've been playing with for years. Like ever since those days, like 14 years old, we started going out and trying to find places to play, and that has persisted on even until now, where over the past 3 years we've done about 150 tour dates a year. And on top of that, I've also just been writing my own songs as well. So I play with the band mainly, and then write kind of my own stuff and release my own stuff as another thing. And they're both really fun avenues of writing music. Like I had always written by myself before playing with the band, and then it was just all co-writing for for quite a few years. Still writing songs of my own, but then now I have kind of gone back to just thinking a lot about, taking a song that I write and just taking it out to the end. Recording it, drums, bass, guitar, all the things. And yeah, so in terms of songwriting, that's kind of the history there, I guess.
That's awesome. So in terms of, I think, the main part of when you just started to, because obviously you've just started releasing kind of your first album. I know you've been playing, as you said, with this other band for a little while, but you've just started doing your solo stuff at the same time. Mm-hmm. Is that something that's been a really long journey to writing your first kind of own solo stuff, or is that something that's only recently you've started working on your own stuff?
Yeah, so like all the songs that I have released and will release in the next, in the coming years, all were written between like May of 2015, which is when I got my hands on some recording software and just like I found the means to start recording my songs between like May of 2015 and now. Okay. So fairly recent, but I mean, before that there was like hundreds of songs that kind of like built up to the ultimate release of these.
Okay, awesome. So in terms of coming up with the song ideas and stuff, do you find that's mostly from, you said you do a bit of journaling and stuff like that and writing poems, all that kind of thing? Is it just a combination of all of that kind of stuff, and you just, when you come to write a song, do you just go back and kind of draw from those things, or is it very much you write in the moment and then you either that's the song or you kind of don't go back to it kind of thing?
Well, I guess it's like different. It kind of just depends what it's about. Like I said, like before, like when I was a kid, it was a lot about, just girls that I liked and stuff. And a few of the songs were just about life things and general things. So if the song is like a love song, it's funny because I'm usually like pretty hot and cold on it. I'm just like, like simply because of the fact that there's so many love songs. And that's such like a pretentious thing to think. Like, no, I shouldn't write a love song because there's lots of love songs. But in reality, like the songs that I most enjoy myself, because like ultimately that's what I write the songs for, is just to write them. The songs that I enjoy the most are the ones where I'm like, pondering an idea that, I've been talking about with my friends or I've been reading about or something like that. Like, and yeah, a lot of that comes from just thinking about something, and just kind of trying to write from the place that I am experiencing something from. That's kind of like a weird thing to say, but that is what I'm trying to do when I'm writing. Yeah, I'd say that's it.
So just trying to stay authentic and not kind of randomly write a love song for the sake of it kind of thing.
Yeah, just trying to write something that is literally expressive and not something that is just a song,
Yeah. Is that something you found difficult when you first started? I know for me I find it quite hard when I've only been writing for kind of a year or so. And one of the hardest things for me is kind of, you write something and you think, oh, that doesn't sound like me at all, or you write something and it kind of sounds like you, but then you think it kind of sounds a bit naff. Is that something that's kind of been quite a long process? Obviously, you've been writing for quite a while, but was that something in the beginning that was difficult for you, or did you always find that quite natural to be able to express what you wanted to, how you felt, basically?
Well, that's funny because I feel like I've been having trouble with that in the past year as well. And I think I found it a lot easier when I was a kid, because when you're a kid, you just do it. You don't care. It's like, I love you, please, just be my girlfriend. Like, you don't care. Like, you just do it, and that's what I want to get back to. I think that I've been in this band. We have kind of made it our mission to just be full-time music, and doing full-time music is awesome, but there's also a bit of a romanticized version of being a full-time musician that kind of comes along with that. And sometimes that influences your creative decisions too. And I find that has been doing that over the past couple of years. And I have to like constantly combat that, just writing something because I think it's something that will lead to some, external validation or benefit, So it's always lately it's been much more like, as I got older, it's been much more of a battle to try and just keep all these things at bay, like all the things like having a career, which is, it's a good thing to want, but at the same time, that's not where your songwriting should come from. Like all great songs just are, they're just an interpretation of, if your experience is just like wanting to be successful, then you can write about that. A lot of people write about that, but for me, that's not where my writing thrives. So I just like try not to do that as much.
Yeah. When you said about kind of compromising, and you feel that perhaps maybe with the band so much you've compromised it a little bit, is that in what way do you mean you've had to compromise? Do you mean just in terms of what you've written about or style of music? What particularly do you mean by that?
I think like when I say compromise, I mean some of the musical decisions you make will be a little bit more safe, I think is a good word for it. Instead of just saying something you think, you'll just say something that you think is good. And that's kind of where that starts and ends for me. Like as soon as you start making decisions based on what you think might be a good thing, then and you kind of have to do that to an extent anyways, but at the same time I feel like you can maintain your like the level of expression that you want to have.
Yeah.
So with the band, we have we have gone through that as well. Like when we were younger, it was way easier to just write together and just make music. And then as we kind of started being like, oh, we could do this for a career, it's like we started touring, and then all these other things kind of got in the way, and there are all these things that kind of get in your head that are like, we gotta do this, we gotta do all this emailing business stuff and all these other things. And all those things are kind of like at the front of your mind rather than just like making music. Yeah. And you kind of just have to get away from that.
Yeah. Do you find that quite a big distraction, the kind of, so we call it the business side of things, I suppose, in the terms of having to get gigs, but also there's also the social media, all that kind of stuff. And do you find that quite a big distraction, or have you got used to it?
Yeah, I'm kind of a baby with that sort of stuff. I will fully admit that. I'm not very good at it, and I don't like things that I'm not good at. Yeah. I think that if I just like when I buckle down and just do it, it's like, okay, it's fine. But for the most part, I just find it difficult, because I'm not good at it and I don't enjoy it and I'm just being a baby about it. But like, it's necessary. Like the social media side of things is necessary. It's just like that's just the platform. And, I change my mind every day, whether, social media is the worst thing in the entire world or if it is utterly essential. And I think that whichever way you think, you kind of have to just use it anyways. So yeah. Yeah. No. Just don't be a baby about it, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny how you said about not liking things that you're not any good at. I totally relate to that. In terms of that, do you struggle with self-criticism a lot? Because I know I do. It's one of the things where, particularly when I've started with songwriting, you automatically want to be really good at it straight away, which just doesn't happen because it's a massive skill and you have to kind of slowly learn about it and improve at it. But I know I constantly criticize everything I do, and it's not just the writing either, it's the playing music as well, in terms of playing an instrument, and whether it's guitar, and you always want to be playing at the level of the people you listen to and like the most. And So you're always wanting to get to that, and it's good to critique what you do, but there's the criticism side that comes in. Is that something that you find difficult too?
Yeah, totally. And again, it's something that I was much better at when I was a kid, because I thought it was awesome when I was little. And now it's just another thing that your adult mind kind of just puts in front of you. I think it's like, I suck. But at the same time, you should just enjoy it. Like, that's really what should be going on. You shouldn't be like comparing yourself to anybody. It's just like all these things that you know for sure are true. Like, yes, of course, I'm not going to be awesome. Why should not expect myself to be awesome? You just this, and you can look back on yourself and be like, why did I feel like that? But at the same time, you do something and you just hate yourself for doing something or for trying something, you know? So it's just being able to find the the not giving a shitness that you had when you were that you just has when they're kids. It's just this utter confidence in this, sort of idealistic perception of music that is. I think music is an idealistic thing. You kind of have to think like that. You kind of have to be confident and just do something, even if it sucks. Everything sucks. It's now no music is necessarily quantifiable by any sort of metric that you can create. So you might as well just do something. And if your mom likes it, then awesome. If your mom and 10 other friends like it, that's awesome. And if 40,000 people on Facebook like it, then that's great too. It's just a thing that you're making.
Yeah. It's like you said before about just doing it because you love it rather than necessarily creating stuff to try and make people like it. You just make what you like and hopefully people like it. But if they don't, as long as you like it, you're doing it for the right reason in the first place, then it doesn't really matter, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is the thing in that the place from which you write music is the most, to me, is the most important part of songwriting. Like what you just said there. If you're making it for the right reason, the right reason I will say is just there's something that you want to express, and I feel like there might be things other than that are important in writing music, but for me, that's what I've been that's my musical philosophy.
In terms of all your recording that you've done recently, because have you produced all of your recordings as well?
Yes.
Yeah. How have you found that? Because I know for myself, it's been really interesting how, as I've learnt more instruments, you and particularly starting songwriting as well, you get more of a kind of overall understanding of music, a lot more than when you perhaps had when you learnt your first instrument, where it's all about that single instrument and you focus on that solely and you're not really paying attention to what the other instruments are doing so much. And then particularly when I started learning other instruments, it was you start to listen to a lot more than just the single instrument that you first started playing to. And then even into songwriting, it's a lot more about the actual song itself to me, rather than just the instruments that are playing. Is that something you find really helps you with kind of the production side of things too?
Yeah, that's a cool thing. Like, you are a multi-instrumentalist as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I think that's important. Like what you're saying is the perspective that you gain from learning other instruments.
Yeah.
Could be important to the production side.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. Like I've kind of been practicing instruments other than drums, because drums is my main instrument, the one that I kind of have studied for most of my life. But I've always like I said, I always had all those other instruments around, and it was always a pretty intuitive thing. And but yeah, as soon as I started recording, the biggest the greatest practice that I had for all of those instruments was just putting them in the context of a song, and just and understanding what parts sound good with other parts, and then like how certain things can interact, and just what you should do with your recordings too, because you can go so deep. You have an unlimited amount of tracks, and that's incredible to have with sort of a digital workstation. You can just have dozens and dozens of tracks. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. It's so cool. But yeah, so back to your question anyways. I do believe that learning other instruments will give you a better perspective on just the overall production of a song. And it'll just probably give you more ways to, do things quicker and more efficiently. Yeah. Because if you want to do something, if you want to play a bass part, you just do it. Then if you want, like, if you played it bad, but that's the idea anyways. So you can just give it to someone and they can play better. Or like with Ariel playing the guitar on my recordings. Guitar, I literally just can't do. I just don't know how to play that instrument very well. And yeah, he's amazing. So
is in terms of the production side of things, what are you kind of thinking about when you trying to bring in that all together? Do you have a sound in your head? Is there kind of, or do you basically just kind of trial and error, play different stuff until you kind of start to kind of piece a puzzle together, if you like, or to get that final sound, or is it already kind of pre-planned in your head?
I would say, like, when I first started recording, it was just like randomly doing a bunch of stuff, and then and often like not really doing that many things. Like my first recording that I made, which was funny. I was talking about like recording and stuff, and kind of working with what you have with a friend last night, and we were talking about how little you actually need to record. My first recording was like, all I had was one SM58 and my and just like a cheap like one channel interface and a mic cable, and then all the instruments. So I literally mic'd the entire drum set with 158. Yeah. And then kind of just like made that work. But the first recording was just drums, bass, guitar, piano, and vocals. And those were the only tracks. I think there was no doubled vocals or anything. It was just like 3-part harmony. So there was like under 10 tracks in the recording. But then as I started doing more stuff, like I quickly like, sought out like a few more mics and tried to improve the sound I was making. And then eventually started doing things like doubling vocals was like a big thing for me. That I learned production wise, where it was like, I can get like a certain texture that I really like from doubling or tripling or quadrupling a harmony or a lead vocal or whatever. I made more recordings. I would start to get like more of a perspective in my head of what I actually want a song to sound like and what a song can sound like that I have made. So now it's like I write a song and I pretty much just immediately think of how it's going to sound recorded, because I know I'm going to do that. But also I've made dozens and dozens and dozens of recordings over the past couple of years, just practicing that, just flexing that producer muscle more or less. So, yeah.
How do you find the kind of the actual production and kind of the performance side of writing a song? How do you find that actually affects the writing of the song? Do you find that there are songs maybe you've written that you're not so bothered about, but then suddenly when you come to playing them, suddenly you're a lot more into them? Or is it you can always, as you're writing it, hear that final sound?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there's a lot of songs that I write that I just like throw out. Like most of the songs I write, I just throw in the garbage, and it's because still trying to maintain that songwriting being a cathartic thing. It's fun to just make a song and then completely forget about it. It's almost like that is like the most therapeutic part of songwriting in a way. But there's this one song that I wrote, and there's just like this idea that I had been thinking about, and I wanted to write about it, and so I made it, and it was much, much different than anything that I've ever made before. And like there was hardly any chords in it at all. It was very like pop kind of pentatonic thing, and I kind of heard how it would sound in my head, like if it was recorded, and I was like, you know what, instead of throwing this out, maybe I'll just try this. So I did my thing. I like went and demoed it, and it came out like really, really well. Actually, it came out really good. Actually, I was really happy with what happened. But it was just because I kind of followed my intuitions with it, and I just sort of did all the stuff that I've done over like the past couple of years. And yeah, it was awesome. It was really fun. I found it to be a really good. I learned a lot from it, to be honest. From just taking the song that I didn't think I would ever use or ever play or ever show anybody, and I ended up getting like some really good response on it, and I might end up putting it on a record that I'll put out in the spring of 2018. But yeah, so yeah, that's like just answer your question. Yes, the production of a song definitely affects whether or not it ends up. Like the potential production of a song definitely affects whether or not the song can be good, or it can really affect the delivery.
Yeah. Just in terms of actually crafting the song and kind of editing them, how much of a process is that for you? Do you find you kind of write a first draft and that's pretty much it? You just do a little bit of honing here and there, or do you find it's quite a long-winded process of writing all sorts of different ideas and then narrowing it down? You might write multiple verses and end up cutting lots of them out. How kind of long a process is it for you?
Yeah, like it just depends, I guess. Like sometimes I just sit down, and if I have the time, I just like sit down and write an entire song. It'll take me like all day. Or I'll just like write it in bits and pieces, and I can make little voice memos and stuff. But I lately I've been often starting with like a melody, and then sometimes I keep the melody, and sometimes the melody leads to other melodies that are better. So I trash the other one, and then that melody leads to other melodies that are better. So then I use the second melody for a verse, and then the third melody for like a pre-chorus, and then I try and find a chorus. And then sometimes the first melody ends up coming. I don't know. Just there's always ideas that just like come and go, and things that can be used. But I end up coming up with a lot of things that I just don't use. And it takes me a while to find something that is what I want. Like I don't remember really the last time I like thought of something and that was exactly how it was for the duration of the song until it was recorded, you know? So there's always lots of ideas.
Yeah. Would you say you're more of a melody or lyrics kind of guy? Is melody always your first kind of thing, or is it lyrics that you come up with first and then add music to it? Do you have a preference, or do you pretty much similar on both?
Yeah, to me the melody is the most important thing in my like style of writing. It's just I don't know, I can't really say that. the melody is a very important thing. The lyrics are also very important to me, and they kind of like sometimes one comes before the other. Like I would say that I definitely fight more for I fight more for a melody that I want, I think, rather than change something for the lyrics. Because I often change lyrics to sound better with the melody.
Yeah.
So I think the lyrics follow the timbre of the melody more or less.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's just interesting because some people they're kind of more lyric focused, even in terms of not necessarily that they think the lyrics are more important, but just in terms of they find it easier to come up with lyrics, and then other people it's the melody is always the first thing, and then they're struggling to kind of put lyrics onto it. I know for me, kind of the music side of things is always a heck of a lot easier, and lyrics takes a lot more effort and work to try and get those together. And so it's just interesting what people's kind of process is like and what they find easier.
Yeah, totally. Oh no, you go ahead.
Sorry, I was just wondering if you have any times where you feel kind of completely uninspired, is there any times where you feel like you're, I don't know, running out of ideas or a bit burnt out or don't really know what to kind of write next?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Like I kind of just went through like my band was doing a ton of touring, and touring is just like kind of exhausting. Like especially in Canada because everything's so far away. You just drive for hours, and that is just like that's not a very inspiring place to be. Like in a stinky van with two other dudes, just like eating terrible food all the time. And although that is one of my favorite things in the world to do, it's not a very inspiring environment. Or for me personally, it is. I know that like a lot of people really like end up writing a lot of songs on the road, but I just don't. But yeah, like I went through like a few months where I didn't write anything. Like from March to like June, I wrote hardly any songs at all, and that's always like the heaviest time of or heaviest touring time for us. So it's kind of generally like that, but usually I think when I feel uninspired, I think it's because I'm not having any stimulating thought or I'm not learning anything. And I'm not experiencing anything that I can learn from really. Kind of just day in day out going through the same things. That happens when I don't know, like when you break up with someone or you get into a relationship, there's always like songs that come out of it because you're experiencing things. You're experiencing stimulating emotions and your brain is just kind of going like this all the time. And there's this new person in your life or this person in your life has disappeared and it's like you don't know what to do. There's just so many thoughts going on. And that is sort of similar lately for me for like having, fun conversations with friends and like learning something or reading something that I'm interested in and or just trying to understand something that I've been worrying about kind of conceptually. All of those things kind of like will stimulate my brain. And the more I've been doing that, the more I've wanted to write and the more interesting things I've wanted to write about. It's, yeah, like I wrote like that song that I was just telling you about, the one that I thought sucked. It was just about that I actually ended up kind of liking. Still think it kind of sucks, but I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. I've just been observing in myself, and I had been just feeling that I was guilty all the time. Guilty all the time about just like being a dude, being a man, just with all the current events and current issues. It's easy to feel guilty for being a straight white male, and in a lot of ways, I think you should feel guilty in a way. I think it would cause it for me. It personally caused like a lot of really beneficial introspective thought, and through that introspective thought, I kind of came up with that song that I thought sucked, but I wrote about something that I really cared about, and that was just like a way to make me feel inspired. Was just literally just trying to stretch my mind and trying to think about something. Trying to understand something and just stimulating my brain a little bit.
Awesome. I thought before kind of coming to the end, if we do like a quick fire type round, so I'll ask you some kind of short questions and you can just give fairly quick answers to them. That's right.
Sure.
Cool. So if any people could only hear one of your songs, which one would you want them to hear?
Waiting.
Probably. Cool. What are your current top sources of inspiration?
Jellyfish and Kimbra and any other bands that are produced by Rich Taylor.
Okay, I'll have to check him out. I don't think I've heard his stuff. If you could do a gig at any particular venue, is there any particular gig venue that you would most like to play at?
I don't know. I played lots of weird gigs. My favorite gigs are just like, I really want to play a extravagant backyard party. Those are fun.
Yeah. Because you play multiple instruments, if you had to only play one of those instruments for the rest of your life, which one would you go with?
Is the voice an instrument, or are you talking?
Yeah,
like
no, the voice definitely counts as an instrument.
God damn it! Well, it would be my voice then.
Okay. So the last question was, if you could form a band with anyone from history, who would you want to be in it?
I'd want to be in a band with Bernard Purdie.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Bernard Purdie on drums. Leland Sklar on bass. Probably I'll say Ariel Posen on guitar. And Woody Goss on keys. And then me and Bernard Purdie would play double drums.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. No, this has been so much fun. It's been great to learn from you. So thanks so much for coming on, particularly for being the first one and everything.
Man, yeah, thanks for that was really fun. It's really fun to just talk about songs and stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. For everyone listening, what is the best place everyone to kind of find you online or get in touch with you?
You can find me on Spotify. You can find the singles that I've currently released on Spotify and iTunes and Apple Music, all those things, all the streaming things. I have my videos up on YouTube of the songs. And yeah, the whole EP is coming out on September 21st. So
awesome. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that coming out. Awesome. Thanks so much. I'll speak to you soon. I'm sure it'll be good to do this again in the future, probably particularly once your full albums come out. We'll have to get back on and talk about that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Totally, man.
So that's it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. Please go and say hi to Roman on social media and check out his music on Spotify and YouTube. If you'd like to see more of these interviews, let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't done already, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again in the next video.